What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by Kevel,
Whoa.
the Seahawks fan. And okay, I'm just gonna let him rant. All right. So, Seahawks fan, tell us how the game was.
Well, I mean, I think it was quite obvious from everyone to watch, but let's get Detroit out of the way here first. That was a completely undisciplined, disastrous performance by them. They were not prepared in any way, shape, or form. Anquan Baldwin, two bad penalties tonight that cost the team. Really thought Detroit would show a lot better tonight than they did. I know that Detroit Lion fans on Twitter are complaining about the officiating. You did not lose the game because of officiating. This was disciplined and very poor on that end. For the Seahawks, one of the big questions coming into this was the running game, which all of a sudden shown up tonight. Thomas Rawls, who off and on injured, was great. Had over
167 yards, I believe.
167 yards, a postseason record for Seattle Seahawks. Incredible catches tonight. One of my favorite lines was from Chris Collinsworth asking if the Seahawks traded for Odell Beckham.
Okay, can we just stop you there? This guy, every single game, has to bring up Odell Beckham. The Giants aren't playing. This guy brings up Odell Beckham every game. And I actually said it before he even said that. I'm like, watch, he's going to say something about Odell Beckham. And then I'm watching it with, like, my friends and stuff. Everybody's, like, laughing because he brings up Odell Beckham.
Odell Beckham again. Yeah, I know. But a lot of circus catches. I think the question is going into next week, if you're the Seahawks, if this is the real Seahawks, if they've solved their problems, or was this a Detroit team that just was unraveled? A poor performance by them all around. And even with the middle finger, I don't think Matthew Stafford was great tonight. Lots of balls were not even close. A lot of drop balls. I'd love to know how many drop balls tonight. I counted 6 at least. Just very off tonight.
Yeah, I think the Lions, we could tell the way that this game was going from the very beginning. I mean, their first possession, they were moving the ball a little bit, drop pass. Second possession, they're moving the ball a little bit, drop pass on third down. Key critical situations, and they're dropping passes. And that's just like the Lions football. Like, the Lions can't escape the way they play football, man. It's just in their DNA or something. But the Lions, like you said, didn't really show up. I mean, I expected the Seahawks to win this game. I didn't expect it to be in this sort of fashion by 20 points. I thought it would be a closer game than this. I definitely expected the Lions to score more than 6 points in this game. I think a lot of that has to do with Jim Caldwell and the coaching and the discipline, like you said. But also, I don't know. They just got outplayed, straight up outplayed. For whatever reason, the leadership wasn't there. Kev, when you're not on the mic, can you just mute yourself?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and because Kev's out there in the public, wanted to do this recap as quick as possible. So Matt Stafford, 18 for 32, 205 yards. Russell Wilson, 23 for 30, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. Let's start off with both the quarterbacks. For me, Stafford didn't play his greatest game. He hasn't been playing that great over the past half of the season. But honestly, Matt Stafford isn't the issue in Detroit. I think there's a lot more issues there. Defense it didn't really show up, didn't play fantastic. They didn't really come up with a lot of plays. Like you said, he was missing some throws. There was a lot of drop passes. The offensive line wasn't really holding up very well for him. Tough place to play against a pretty good defense. On the other side, Russell Wilson played pretty awesome. I mean, 23 for 30, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. No real bad, mistakes or anything. Russell Wilson was being Russell Wilson. He played a typical good game. And with the 2 touchdowns at the end of the game to pretty much seal it up. What did you think of the quarterbacks in this game, Kev?
Well, I thought Russell at the beginning of the game had a rough start, especially Ziggy Ansah was all over George Fant, and he got 2 sacks tonight. I believe he got 2 sacks tonight. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So they were putting on some pressure early, but they really once Thomas Rawls and the running game got going, it really turned everything around for everyone. And I think the big difference was the receptions tonight. I mean, Baldwin made 2 incredible catches. Paul Richardson made 2 incredible catches. And Anquan Bolden made 2 incredible drops. Golden Bank made 2 incredible drops. And Eric Ebron made 3 incredible drops. So there you go with the difference of the game. Right there was the receiving core. I mean, it's just 1 or 2 different plays could have turned this thing around. I mean, that 4th down and 1. It's not that they should.
Let's talk about that real quick. I don't think I actually at the moment was saying they should go for it and try and capitalize and make the Seahawks chase you in the game.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Why are they running that play on 4th and 1? I mean, you're having a rollout play. I understand the concept of the play, but you're facing a very fast defense that's going to be able to get out to the outside. I mean, if you're going to do anything, just spread them out 5 wide and hit some crossing routes, or just run it right up the middle. Either one. Like, I don't understand the approach of passing it from under center, running the whole West Coast Joe Montana rollout to the right when you're facing the Seahawks defense that's all built around speed. To me, that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And a little bit earlier on that drive, Setter hit Bobby Wagner pretty hard on a blitz. It would have been a great opportunity to establish Detroit's toughness there, but they didn't do it. They got fancy, they got cute, and that was a big problem.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the big plays. I brought this up in my preview for this game. I said the big plays in this game, who's going to make those big plays down the field? And obviously the Seahawks did that with their, like you said, their receivers played awesome. Let's get to the running backs. Zach Zenner had 11 carries for 34 yards. I said they needed to probably have about 20 carries for him in this game to be successful. I thought the Seahawks defensive line pretty much dominated up front, which gave Matt Stafford a lot of issues, and they weren't really able to get a good, consistent run game going. The Seahawks, if they're going to be successful next week against Atlanta, that's the number 1 priority for me. I understand that Matt Ryan has been awesome all year through the air, but you have to make that offense one-dimensional, and it makes them a lot less creative. So when they're going into Atlanta, you need to make them one-dimensional, take away Devontae Freeman and Tavon Coleman in the run game, and that's what they'll have to do next week as well as they did this week. And then on the other side, Thomas Rawls, 27, 161 here it says on NFL.com, 1 touchdown, 32-yard was his long run of the day. He looked explosive. He looked strong. He looked quick. He showed great vision. The offensive line blocked great, and I think the home field had something to do with it. The crowd was really into it, but also I think that just everyone talks about how now that Marshawn Lynch is gone, that this is a Russell Wilson team, but this is still a run-first offense. You need that run game to establish the pass game in this offense, and I feel like they did that tonight, and that's why they were so successful through the air and on offense in general.
Yeah, I agree. It's Russell Wilson is not the guy that you want throwing 40 to 50 passes a game. That's not how Russell Wilson wins. He wins throwing 20 to 30. You need to run about 10 times. Fortunately, they didn't need to run tonight. A couple of things I did notice, though, that gives me some concern for Atlanta. And if you're a Falcons fan watching, here's a couple of little notes. You'll note that Rawls, I would love to know breakdown because he didn't run much to the left. He ran mostly to the right and the middle. Didn't run on Fant's side at all. And if he did, he didn't get anywhere. And I don't recall many of that. So that's one thing that I think was rather interesting. Fortunately, though, too, Wilson was able to get a lot of passes, a lot of quick passes out. So that helped. And getting the lead, that's always a really important thing for Seattle. When they have the lead, they can go to the run game, which will be important next week as well.
Yeah, to go into Atlanta, that's going to be an interesting game because obviously they're going to score more points, you have to assume, than Detroit did today, and it could become kind of a track meet. So if Seattle's able to run the ball effectively and keep the ball out of Atlanta's hands, that's going to be their best weapon going into next week. So it was definitely a big sign for them that they were so effective on the ground. And then we go to the receiving. Obviously, Richardson, man. This guy made 2 incredible catches, and Chris Collinsworth kept calling him Odell Beckham. That was kind of annoying, but this guy played awesome. He had 2 crazy catches, 1 touchdown, 48 yards. Doug Baldwin, consistent presence. He kind of reminds me of like I think this guy's finally starting to get some respect around the league. Like he kind of had 2 pretty good years. Last year, I think he was right up there for touchdowns receiving wise. And a lot of people kind of said, well, that was kind of a fluke because it all happened in the second half of the season. But I think people are finally trying to recognize that Doug Baldwin is a good receiver. And he kind of reminds me of like a Steve Smith, like light. He's not as good as Steve Smith, but he kind of has like the same qualities as Steve Smith. 11 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Those were the 2 primary guys. Jimmy Graham only had 3 catches for 37. Those were the 2 guys that were consistently making the big plays, especially Doug Baldwin. On the other side, Marvin Jones showed up. This guy has not really shown up. He's kind of been a ghost all season long, but he finally showed up in this game for 81 yards. Golden Tate was kind of disappointing. I understand he drew the Richard Sherman matchup, but he had a couple big drops in this game. Zach Zenner out of the backfield, 6 for 54, nothing too effective. But the Seahawks did a great job defending the pass in this game. I thought they would kind of have some issues with the horizontal, slants and screens that the Lions love to run, but they really wrapped it up and were great in tackling. So what do you think of the receivers in this game? I know you said that the Lions kind of sucked. Anything to do with, Doug Baldwin, how the Seahawks attacked the Lions offense? What do you think there, Kev?
Actually, Sherman wasn't matched with Tate all that often. So that's one thing that I did notice. I'm going to be interested to see what they do with Sherman next week on Julio Jones. That'll be an interesting matchup looking ahead. I think that the big problem tonight was Bolden took 2 terrible penalties. It's a playoff game. You don't do that kind of thing, especially if you're a veteran receiver. You just don't take unnecessary roughness penalties, cost them the game. Eric Ebron, also, if we could talk about him, the guy did okay in blocking, but he's a receiving tight end, and there was a lot of drops tonight that I think just killed a lot of drives for Detroit. They had an opportunity to control the ball a little bit more in the air than they actually did. So overall, Baldwin is underrated. I mean, it's that Wilson Baldwin combination is probably the second best combination in the league. I liked your Steve Smith analogy. I wouldn't say he's as intense as Steve Smith, but he's just one of those guys that just doesn't get a lot of love and respect. So one of the best slot receivers in the NFL for sure.
Okay, so we're on to the defense. I think 2 guys that we need to talk about are the 2 guys in the front. And these are – and actually, a lot of people don't realize, but Michael Bennett, when this guy plays, he is like – I've been saying this for the last couple of years, and you really know this guy's good when Tom Brady says this guy's the best guy on the Seahawks. I mean, like before the Super Bowl a couple years ago, Brady and Belichick were like, we're game planning for Michael Bennett. Like, this is the most disruptive guy on the Seahawks. So you got a lot of credit for him. You got a sack in this game. But also the other guy on the other side, Cliff Avril. These 2 guys have been disruptive, like their whole careers together. But in this game, they dominated. I think if they're going to win in Atlanta, they need to dominate again, especially without Earl Thomas there on their defense. These guys in the front figure they need to step up, and they did in this game, and they need to continue to do that. Wagner was great again with 10 tackles. Chancellor had 7 tackles in this game. On the other side, Tavon Wilson, a guy that just came to Detroit this season, was kind of in some tough situations. For whatever reason, they put him on Doug Baldwin a lot. He was on the Patriots last year, and they never really utilized him a lot, but he's now in Detroit. Actually has played very well for Detroit throughout the regular season. But for whatever reason, he was in a lot of weird situations, and I felt like the defense for Detroit, like they didn't scheme the best they could have, in my opinion. Like a lot of bad matchups on the outside, a lot of weird just decisions overall. Ansah did have 2 sacks, like you said. He had 9 tackles as well, was pretty disruptive, maybe the best game of his entire season. Haloti Ngata had 1 sack, and that's about it. I mean, nobody was really just stood out. Nobody made a huge play on the Lions at all. So what do you think of both defenses and what the Seahawks need to do next week?
You're right about the front 4. Avril, Bennett were all over the place tonight, especially Bennett. But I do want to focus on Detroit's defense first because they got caught in a lot of double teams with the running game. They were basically they were running right up the middle. It was pretty much the same play, and the linebackers couldn't get themselves involved in the attack at all in the running game. Whitehead was completely trapped 2 or 3 different occasions, which helped. Nada also took a very terrible penalty in about the second quarter, I think it was, that set the team back. Was I think during that touchdown drive. The Seahawks defense was what we expect from the Seahawks defense: physical, tough. The way that they play at home. Bobby Wagner was an absolute beast tonight. Big hits, intimidating. That's what they're going to need to be against the Falcons next week. Basically, you just need to isolate Sherman versus Julio Jones, make this a man-on-man matchup, and I don't know if Atlanta does have the weapons to do it, but we will see about that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Atlanta obviously had the best offense in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan, a lot of credit to him on how creative that team is in terms of offensively. I think a big thing will be if they can get their running backs involved, not only in the run game, but in the pass game. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, Seahawks-Atlanta. We do know that's going to happen next week. There's also going to be whoever wins tomorrow will play the Cowboys, so that's deciding the NFC. Overall, kind of disappointing. Detroit Lions didn't play too well in this game, kind of expected better. And for the Seahawks, I think they looked a little bit better than we expected. So this was the Lions and Seahawks recap from the Bottom Line View. Mitch and Kev, 26-6. Any last words, Kev, if you want to plug anything or say anything about the Seahawks going forward as the Seahawks representative of this channel?
Well, I mean, we could talk about the video where I didn't pick the Seahawks to defeat Atlanta, but that's a spoiler alert. We'll talk about that next week to see what's going ahead. Follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE and add me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olink. I think Mitch and I are going to meet on my podcast next Friday to talk about round 2 of the divisional round. We see who plays who, just to see how the next round faces as we get into the crunch of the NFL playoffs, as the Falcons, Cowboys, Patriots, and Chiefs enter the fray. By the way, something important to think about in this Atlanta game is the last professional football game in the Georgia Dome. Remember that.
Ooh.
That'll be a historic moment. So
wait, is Goldberg going to come out?
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, thanks, guys, for watching. If you enjoyed, Gronk spiked the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. We appreciate all you new subscribers that have subscribed for the NFL playoffs. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned. If you're a fan of the NFL, definitely check out our content. Lots of content, multiple videos a week. Lots of talk on the NFL, wrestling, NHL, NBA. So all that stuff's covered on the Bottom Line View. If you enjoy, subscribe to the channel. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch and Kev. Peace out.
Peace.